curious. Who did you do the one to catch the name?
I just heard it go ping.
You need her number? I got that too.
Live, there we go. We are up. We've been recorded. Just so you know, Bob.
Huh?
It's recording.
Whoa!
Live.
Oh, shit, are we on the hangout?
Yeah.
My name is
I'll edit it out. But anyone who's watching live. Okay. So, because Drupal 8.1's coming out in a couple of months, because just so you know, Drupal point releases are coming out every 6 months. And they're not saying this, they will go into the point release. They say, the code freeze happens here, anything that's available will now go into point release. So, it's like April and October or something. They're always going to come out. So it was like, it's about time we moved on to Drupal 8 stuff, because we're getting to the start of the next Drupal camp season, and I'm pretty sure that if you have a Drupal 7 presentation, it's no good anymore. I'm pretty sure they'll not take any Drupal 7 presentations now. Yeah, it's all going to be 8.
So.
It's all going to be 8 or off the Drupal Island or stuff, right? So it's like, okay, I need to get my butt in gear. Let's look at this, and let's look at writing a basic custom module, the new Drupal 8 way, which Phpstorm helps with a huge amount. Well, any code completion and things like that. So this is actually, so I've just downloaded, let's look at my notes. So one of the things you might find is when you install Drupal 8 and run it, it bitches immediately because it has this xdebug max nesting level. It needs to be at least 256 in your php.ini. So you've got to go and fix that. Now when you pull down, so what I've done is I've just pulled, pulled Drupal 8 and done pretty much nothing to it. And so if we look here, there's a git ignore example, I think, here.
Yeah, there's an example of git ignore.
And one of the things you can do is take off this vendor, because originally vendor was ignored, because the vendor stuff is managed by Composer, so the guys can come in and just go Composer update and everything will be downloaded automatically, so you don't have to check it into Git. Technically you can do core as well, so because core is managed by it, so you can actually just download the pieces that are custom to yours, then do Composer update, and it'll pull everything down from there, work it out. Where else have we got here? What it says, it should be true of core, and it may or may not be right now. If you're running Phpstorm, there's a couple of things you might want to do. If you go down to the plugins, and you do this browse repositories and look for Symphony, there's this Symphony plugin with 1.5 million installs. It's installed on mine. You want to install this, and what it does is it makes Phpstorm understand all the Symphony pieces. There's also an annotation one, PHP annotations, which you probably want to, it might be useful to install as well. When you install it, you can come down to this Symphony plugin. When you install it, it has to restart. Under the other settings, there's now this Symphony plugin. You'll notice it's enable this plugin for project. Change need to restart, yeah? Change need to restart. So you turn it on. You've got to do that on per project. So every time you start Drupal 8, you have to turn it on. But what it does is it enables Phpstorm to understand all the Symphony and Drupal stuff. Right. So, let's delete these. So I've already built this already, and I'm going to build it again, build it as I go along, so I've got one to look at. So one thing you'll notice is the modules go in the modules directory. None of the site's all modules anymore. So here, let's create a new directory. New directory, and I'm going to just call it LSW because that's my initials. And in here, what we need originally is an lsw.info.yaml.
It's also recommended to do modules, custom modules, config.
Yeah, I should have done that, but it's not there already, so I'm just... Yeah, you should do the standard, custom contrib, devel, migrate features. But just like you did Drupal 8. No, we don't worry about that for now. Okay, so we've got a YAML file. What I've done is speeded this up a bit just to... So, it looks just like, hey, it looks just like a regular info file. It's not actually no different. So the name of my module is LSW, it's a module, it's a Drupal Chattanooga stuff, we're going to stick it in the Drupal Camp Chattanooga package, and it's good for Drupal 8. Now if you write that, you can actually go back to here, go extend, and that's all you need to turn up in the modules. So there, I can actually turn it on. Doesn't do anything, because all that info file does is describe it to Drupal, so it can turn up in the modules. But there, we've turned our LSW module on. It doesn't do anything right now. Okay. So we're going to create a custom page. So to create a custom page, you obviously got to have what you normally do is do hook menu and do all of that kind of stuff. None of that exists in Drupal 8. In Drupal 7 and all previous ones, you implemented hook menu, the menu called a callback, which then called the theming, which spat out the page to you. Now, most modern things now say you need a root and you need a controller. And these are kind of the naming conventions they use. So you need to define a root that says when this path comes in, call this class, call this method on this class, and that's what happens. And generally, the thing you point it to is the controller. You say this path is controlled by this thing. So
the method in the controller, right?
yes. So it's two steps. Yeah, create a root, create a controller. So we need in here we need a new file, which is module name.routing.yaml. And we're going to do some quick stuff here. Okay, we'll create the controller later. Right. So I'm going to create a path and give it a name called LSW says, because I say stuff. The path is /LSW/says. Then I have it. You'll notice they're indented. YAML works out by indentations which are parents of the thing. So the path is a child of LSW says, and the controller is a child of defaults, which is a child of LSW says. So it's just a simple indentation.
And it has to be spaces.
It has to be spaces. It's always spaces, no tabs.
Oh, okay.
If you do tabs, it'll actually blow up trying to parse.
So what you're seeing here, this Drupal LSW controller, :say, the piece in front of the double colon is actually a namespace. So you can't have two things with the same name. You can't have, but you can have two functions called say in different namespaces. As long as you can say use the say on that namespace or use the say on that namespace. So the say is the method name, and then obviously all we've got is set of permissions here for access content, which is the regular Drupal access content. So instead of doing hook permissions, you just stick them in requirements in there now. So you don't have to implement a hook permission. It simplifies it. So we also have to create, that's the root. It says in the event you do your local Drupal /LSW/says, call the say function method on that LSW controller, which we haven't created yet. Now this is kind of a weird thing, because what you do now is you create a directory, and it has to be source. And in the source, let's get this right before I mess this up. So source, so we can, because it has controller, we have to, obviously it's got to meet, so it's got to, everything under the source kind of fits in between here. So there's Drupal things, so we have to do new directory. Now we will get to the, so we create another directory called controller under source, and then we need to create a new class in here, new PHP class, and it's going to be LSW controller. Bink. Actually, we'll just get rid of. But this needs a namespace. And it's going to be the Drupal. And now it will look like, obviously this one, LSW. And it should. LSW controller. So it basically says this class exists in this namespace. And we have to give it, obviously this, so we've defined effectively the class, but we also need to define this method. So, I think I've got a bunch of them. Oh, wrong one. So, we need to define a method of about the controller. So here's the same method. So define a public function say that says, now this, hang on, let me show this. We're not actually worrying about, at this moment we're not actually worrying about theming things with that response, which you'll notice there's no, it doesn't know what the heck it is. If I do this response and it's a Symphony 2 component HTTP foundation, when I pick it, it added that use Symphony component thing at the top automatically. Because Phpstorm's gone, which one did you want? When he did control space to autocomplete, it said, oh, there's a pick one. And when you do it, it added the use thing for you. So anything with response is automatically be that Symphony component response. So all I'm doing is sending back JSON. So if we go to here, let's go back to site. Let's go LSW says. It says, was it? Yeah. Did I? Now, I've created a new route. And normally if you mess with hook menu, what's the thing that you always have to remember to do when you're messing with things like that in Drupal, which is not what is 80% of your problems? Clearing the cache.
This is cache rebuild.
So now it's actually slightly different. Now we're going to talk about the Drupal console, so you can address CR for cache rebuild. And let's go back to here. It says hello, which is exactly what we were telling it to do. So we've actually sent, and obviously there's no, as you can see, there's nothing in here. We are not worrying about the theming piece yet. We're actually talking about how to set the routes and the controller up. We'll get around to that at some point. Probably not tonight, but we're trying to show you routes, controllers, and dependency injection. Services, dependency injection is the same thing. It means the same thing. You can use the service container and the dependency injection container are interchangeable terms. It's just that people understand there's a bag here and it has services like a logging service or a database service. That makes sense. When you say dependency injection, people go, ah! Because it means it's basically a service container. Okay. So we have. Now, one interesting thing we can do here, JSON response. So let's change it to a JSON response. So now I get JSON back. It can be so you can actually write services the way that spit JSON back by simply building an array of data, converting it to JSON and doing JSON response on that thing, and you get JSON back. Yeah, so you've actually written effectively a small API to spit JSON around. really, really quickly. So let's go and fix this. This is not JSON anymore. Just regular response. Let's put that in to show. And that's a default Symphony component, the JSON response, the response and JSON response. Because all web things are get a request, and it's all now a request object. You don't go looking at super globals or poking around in PHP. Everything's in the request object. And to send something back, you generate a response object, and you send the response object back. Which in this case, we've only just put some text in it. The hello text. So, what you basically do, you've just built your first custom page in Drupal. Admittedly, it's not themed very good, but you're actually sending data back. You've defined a path, you've done something, and sent it back. Okay. Now we need to have a chat about the Drupal console. Because the Drupal console, in reality, you won't tend to do a lot of this by hand. You'll let the Drupal console auto-generate a lot of stuff for you. But if you skip the understanding of the basics, the Drupal console stuff will always be magic, and you'll never really understand it. So, Drupal console. Drupal console. There's console. So you can install this, and simply it's drag this, move it to somewhere you can use it. It's actually built off the Symphony console. So if you've ever seen the Symphony console, Symphony will build a bunch of stuff for you. So they've extended the Symphony console to do all the Drupal-y things as well. And what you do is you move it to your user local bin and called it Drupal. So you can actually just type Drupal now, and it will list things it can do. There's Drupal list, which is that what do you want to do? You want to reset passwords, you want to do all sorts of things. There's also sort of like generate module, generate container, generate service, sorry, and things like that. So
you go in and you
here,
create a whole Drupal site just from the console.
You can create a custom code from the console. So a lot of stuff we're doing now is making it by hand. But what you can actually do is once you understand it, you can say, I need a new module, I need a new plugin for a block, I need a new block, because blocks are now plugins. You can just Drupal generate :block :plugin, I think it is, or :plugin :block, and it will generate it'll put everything in the right place and name everything correctly and namespace everything correctly for you, and it will just sort of do the donkey work, and then you fill the pieces in you need to.
Would you like to create a brand new Drupal site from scratch and all that kind of on your machine? Would you still use Drush, or would you come in here and use?
They kind of live side by side. The Drupal console will do a lot of what Drush does, but you can still Drush cache rebuild. But you can also Drupal cache rebuild, which is the same thing. So they do a lot of the same things, except the Drupal console does everything the Symphony console does as well. So it does a lot more. It'll auto-generate code for you. It'll do a lot of other things. So there's all sorts, and you can extend it. So if you've got something that you think needs to go in the Drupal console, you can write an extension for the Drupal console, and your Drupal console will do it now. Now, there are a couple of useful things in it. So you can Drupal list, which tells you everything, gives you that massive list of what it does. If you Drupal init, it will actually copy its the Drupal console's configuration files into your root. If you want into your own root, I think there's a .console in your home directory then that you can mess with it. In reality, when you start out, you're not going to mess with it very much, but as you get on, you might want certain customizations, which allows you to do that. Then you can also type Drupal self-update as well, and it will self-update itself just like Composer does, and things like that. So you can actually Drupal cache rebuild all, and that's, if you don't put the all on the end, it will ask you, and all's the default, and you press it. So using Drupal, the Drupal console, you can do your caches built on Symphony. So that's just a chat. You're going to want this because this allows you to poke around and see what services I have, things like that. You can actually say, list me the services that are on this system, and it will list it, and it will say, it's called this ID, and it uses this class. So it allows you to work out. It actually tells you what all the core ones are as well. In fact, if we get to it, we'll work out what logging core gives you. We'll ask the service container for a logger, for that logger, and we'll use it to log things. If we have time. Let's have a look. Okay. So that's a little side note about the Drupal console. It's very useful. Let's go back to that one. Okay. Now, frequently you want to pass it an argument. So, how many times do you want to say hello? And you do this simply by putting this parentheses count, parentheses in. And it passes it to this function. Now, you'll notice that this is called count, and that is called count. They do actually have to be the same name. So it's actually going to pass the count to the LSW controller save function, which is this, the LSW controller save function. So we're just going to do something simple here. We will add, count. We'll just put the count on the end. Now, if we come back here and do this, it blows up. Now, I've actually got some special debugging turned on, so it'll spit this information out. Because the root is now LSW says count, LSW says is no longer a root, because you're expected to pass it something.
Now,
So
how can you do it so it will almost like overloading it so it
you can. There are ways to make.
so it will handle whether you pass one in or not.
Yeah. So if I give it an argument this time, page not found. Maybe I have to cache rebuild because it's a. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I have to do. Let's cache rebuild because I've messed with the routing system, which is all heavily cached. So now it says hello 50. So if I put it says hello thing. So I'm actually passing an argument into it now. Right. Now I guess it'd be worth talking about the debug mode. Now, when you look here, if we look sites, there's an example.settings.local.php, and the way it works is it likes to have a settings.local.php. This example one, I've copied it into my default and renamed it settings.local.php. And the biggest differences here are it turns some like this config logging error level verbose that when this one was wrong, page not, it's just page not found now. Let's try that.
I think you're getting that here across the cache.
When you have those things, that spits that more information out as opposed to just a 500 server error. So turning the verbose on, the actual message we had do we still have it somewhere? Was it that one? No. I'm trying to see if it's remembered it. It actually spits that more information out, so it's a bit more useful to work out what the heck is going on. I mean, the way to prove that works, to get that back here, we can, because we try and call this save function. So let's get rid of it, and then let's call it again. Buff. It says that doesn't exist. So invalid argument, the controller for URI is not callable. So it actually gives you more information about what's going on. It says, I hit this URI, I'm supposed to call this, and it gives you an idea of where to go as opposed to a 500 server error, which is what it would normally give. So that's what the verbose thing does. Let's put that back because we need it. Then there's the things here as well. It will load this development.services.yaml version instead of just the regular services.yaml, and it will give you extra things. We'll get around to that. But it basically turns a bunch of things on. Now, one of the things you have to do is edit your settings.php, and right at the bottom, this piece here that goes and looks for it. If settings.local.php exists, include it. That's normally commented out. You'll have to go and comment that back in, and it will load your local settings. Generally, what you do is you don't check settings.local.php into Git, and so you can actually define your local database in that, and you can turn all your caching off, and you can turn your aggregation, CSS and JavaScript aggregation off automatically, instead of going, you pull a live database and you have to turn all of that stuff off. You can actually set that up in your local settings to automatically turn it off.
In the local settings, will they always override the
settings? Because it goes at the bottom. Well, except for this, you'll see this went at the bottom. Technically, this should be at the bottom, and then you define this again in here.
You define it in settings.local.
Define it in settings.local for your local, and then you're all okay.
So you don't ever have to touch your settings PHP. You
No.
just override everything.
You override everything. You set everything up. Everything settings.php should be what your live one is, and then you override all the live settings with your local ones with a .local. And similarly, if you want to, you could set up a settings.test.php that's for your test one if you want slightly different ones on your test. And the idea is you don't check that in. Everyone has their own that points to the local. Then there's none of that. People keep checking settings.php and then stamping on each other's toes. I do all of that. I actually do it like that for Drupal 7 as well, using exactly the same. You can cut and paste that bit of code out and run it exactly on 7, exactly the same way. The two things on the bottom, the install profile and sync, I'll get to in a minute. Okay. So messages, so we've got debug mode. We've basically turned slightly better debug information on while we're working. Now, one things we can do, we can Drupal, is it debug? Root debug. We can list all the roots in the system. So here, let's pull this out so we can see a lot more. Come on, collapse. Oh, okay, one of them. So we can look down here. So on the left-hand side, let's go to the top. Let's do it again. So on the right-hand side is the actual path. On the left-hand side is actually the ID, the root name. So the tag when you ask for, give me this one. Now, I've created one called LSW. So if I do that and grep for LSW, there's my LSW says one. So everything is, all your modules, all the core stuff, it's all in there. So you can find out what's happening. But you can also ask it more information. So let's find one that's a bit more information that has, oh, look at this one. Views, look at that. That has this handler extra. We can views debug and give it that information. And now it actually tells us what path it's using, what the controller it's using. So there's the, you know, that the Drupal views UI form Ajax config handle extra get form. That's the class, and the get form method on it is being called. And it tells you information about it. So you can always, if you're trying to work out what the heck's going on, you can always do this, find it, and get some information out of it. If you're trying to work out, especially if it's cores should be relatively straightforward, but if someone else's custom module, say, and try and work what's going on, you can actually ask the Drupal console questions and it will give you its information. Okay. Now, there's a couple of useful things. Let's go back to here. So this should work now. Okay. So let's go back to the, let's go back to Drupal. There's a couple of other modules we can turn on. If you download the devel module, which is everyone's staple when they're building, they've now got, there's this web profiler, which is built on the Symphony profiler tool. So it turns devel on. Now, Kint is a replacement for Crumo. If you remember Crumo, you could do DSM, and an expandable sort of GUI thing would appear with data in it that you could poke around. But Crumo has been, we're trying to work out. It's on SourceForge, so a lot of places, a lot of plugins go, we're not going to SourceForge, no, because it's full of malware. And it has been updated in, we think, anywhere between 2 and 8 years. So it's old, and if you put a PHP object in it, it kind of does its best, but it's not very good. Kint is a replacement for that, so you can actually just call Kint object name, and it will dump the thing onto the page for you that you can then inspect and have a look around, which is very useful way of poking around if you just want something on the page to poke around as opposed to putting a breakpoint in the debugger. Then the other one is this web profiler. So all you have to do is download the devel module, and all of these come in the devel module. So I'm going to turn the web profiler on. And wait a second. And if you've seen the Symphony Console, what happened there? Let's see what's going on. Okay, so now at the bottom you can see this. You can see this, and this tells you information about it. So the version of Drupal we're using, the version of PHP we're using, what extensions we've got turned on. This one's kind of interesting. We'll come back to this one in a minute. So it got a 200 return. It used the system controller. That's the controller system it called system admin menu block page. We're going to go and override that in a minute. We're actually going to override a core one to show you that we can mess with it. So you know what happened to each page, how long it took, how much memory, how many database queries happened, who's logged in. Of course, there's views, there's stuff about views, there's stuff about what modules are turned on. There's all sorts of information here. Now, if we go back to modules, extend, that's not everything, not all of it's turned on. And then we look for the web profiler again, and we hit the configure. You'll see there's some, so routing and services seem like they might be useful, and events seem like they might be useful. So let's save that configuration. And now we've got a few extra things down here. What events were triggered, what kind of CSS and JS was done on. It's all sorts of information. Now, the other thing you can do is you can click this, and you actually get a profiler page. That little thing on the bottom is a summary of what's on this. So to get this sort of like nice sort of layout of how long everything took, whether there's services, whether events were triggered, like the big long blue ones are where are we? No, probably isn't it? Here we go. The big blue ones is an event handler waiting for the event to be triggered and things like that. So you can say, because this is a profile listener, you see. So it tells you what went on the last page. So you can see, it's a request, what happens. You can look at your PHP config. You can look at some timing things. You can see what database queries were done. You can explain them and mess with them. So here, select session from sessions where ID equals blah, blah, blah. You can see what users logged in. You can see any views that don't, of course there's no views on that one. What blocks were loaded, what forms were done, now this is the listing. When we did the Drupal route debug, that's exactly this. This is the list of all of the routes on the system. Exactly the same thing. It's just on it. So what kind of caching things happened. There's a whole bunch what services were used. There's a whole bunch of information there that allow you to work out why your page is slow or what's going on, which is absolutely awesome because it appears on the bottom of every single page. So is there something else we want to talk about? That dev modules, Kint. Okay. So here, if we try this, let's reverse engineer one of the pages. So if we look here, we can see that there's this Drupal system controller, then this, which is the name of the class, then it called this method. So let's go looking for that. So it's system controller. Now there's a cheat you can do here. You can double tap, so system controller, there it is. and that's what we're looking for, the system admin menu block page. System admin menu block page. So I just went into Phpstorm, go and find me that class and find me that function, and it found it. So we can say, okay, let's overload this. Return new response, Symphony response, and we shall say we fixed it. Now if we come back here and reload that, we get we fixed it. So we've actually just messed with a core system. We've actually reverse engineered, worked out what's going on by looking at the profiler pieces at the bottom, worked out what it's calling, going off and finding them, which is where the Phpstorm thing and being able to look through it helps. Let's return that back to as it was. Okay. Okay. So, let's go back to the site. So what we've got so far now, we've actually got a root and we've got a controller. So are we're looking at the system one. Let's go back to ours. So we've defined a root and passing an argument and told it that when this root gets hit, when this path gets passed, you go to this controller and call the LSW controller say function, which is exactly there. So you've pretty much got a request response going already. And that's roots and controllers in a nutshell. Obviously you can do a lot more complicated. Generally at this point you do more complicated things. But we're also passing an argument to it. Now, we're going to talk about services and containers. So that you've learnt the root response flow. Yeah, that's basically what we've done there, very simply, in a custom module. So services. A service is a useful object, or something that does work for me. Okay, so I want a database service. Give me the database service because I want to talk to the database, and it knows about. Give me a logging service because I want to log something somewhere. And you can create them, or other people can create them, or they can be in core. Now, there's a lot of services in core. So log is a service. I want to send some email. Give me the email service. I want to send some email off. You don't have to you just ask Drupal, the container, to give you the email service. And of course, where you get listed the services that are available is you use the Drupal console to list you the services, which we will do in a second. Like you'll never say, give me the node service, because it doesn't do work. It kind of holds data. A node holds data, right? And like a product will hold data. It's not really something that will do work for you. So they're not services, but a service is something that will do some work for you. You always end up with logging and database and things like that, and email. So what you do is you ask the service container for the service. There's one container, the entire system wide, and you say, I want to go into that container and give me this service, please. And the way you find out what service is in is you list them in with the Drupal Console. Now there's a whole bunch of them, and a bunch of them you probably never use, but it's some pretty common ones. And everything Drupal does is done with services. So when Drupal does things, it goes to the service container and says, give me the database thing, give me the stuff for this, give me the stuff for that. So the way you write it is actually how core works as well. Everything's a service. So why don't we turn what we're doing into a service? So a path happens, we request the service from the service container, then we invoke it, and it gives us the data we want, and then we send it back. Then that is, you can test that service separately in unit tests and things. Because right now, what we're doing is embedded into the controller, and so that's tightly coupled to everything else, where we can test a lot of the system out. And also, you don't want a controller to be this massive thing. You actually want, say, it hits the controller says, go and do something for me, and then return the response. And it's a relatively simple, easy thing to read through flow-wise, as opposed to having thousands of lines of code embedded in the controller, which aren't actually related to the controller. So, okay, we're going to create a service that says hello for us. Okay. So, LSW, okay. So, we're going to create, we need a new directory, and what were we calling this as a matter of interest? We can call this, let's call it LSW services, just so we know. That's separate, right? Yeah. So there's LSW services, new, we create a new class, and this is going to be our hello generator. So we'll create a hello generator. Let's just get rid of this, just so it's easier. Okay. So we have to namespace it, obviously. So let's namespace, and this is going to be the Drupal, and then it's LSW. It's a lowercase LSW, right? Yeah, it is. And then this is the LSW services. Okay. Because it exists down here, it has to match this path. So the namespace and the path on your file system match. The only thing you'll see missing from that is the source. Yeah, there's no Drupal source LSW or LSW source LSW service. It's just implied. You just don't have to put the SRC this in between. So Drupal LSW services. So we're going to let's do the thing that says hello. We'll do a function called getHello and pass the count in again. So right now we can call this, so the controller, instead of doing this, can actually say equals new, and that's LSW. Did I not get it? LSW services. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's hello generator is what we call the hello generator, and so it's already worked out that it's part of Phpstorm's worked it out. So when I do that, it adds the use in. So Drupal LSW service hello generator. The use is at the top, and we're going to pass the count in, and we could just return new response hello. Now it's not actually a service yet. All we've done is extracted out the work that's being done and put it in a new. So let's try the LSW says. Okay, is that because response content must be a string or object implementing toString? Ah, there we go. Let's check this one. Return gotten hello count. Oh, hello is an object. So that's the hello generator. So dot hello equals hello generator, and we call the get hello. We call that the get hello response on it. So get, and if we control space, it's going to find it. Count, because okay, because I said instantiate me a new object, which it did.
You need to get rid of the count.
Yeah, we need to get rid of this count here. It shouldn't go in here. Give me a new hello generator, and then of course I passed that object to the response, and it went, I don't know what the heck this is. Okay, so, and it doesn't look any different because it shouldn't. So we've just extracted the work it's doing, and we're instantiating that object now, getting an instance of it, then calling hello on it, which still isn't a service. So now we need to, now we've got that thing separate, we can actually turn it into a service. Okay. So we can look at Drupal container debug, and it will look into the services container and list all the services that are in there. And you can see there's a whole bunch. And again, the left-hand side is the ID or the nickname of it. The right-hand side's the actual namespaced class that's being used to deliver that functionality. And so if we look through here, we can probably find log. If we grep for log, there's a whole bunch of logging things going on here. So there's some logger channels, a logger channel factory. So that, yeah, your friend is the whatever debug grep for something you're interested in. Oh, what the heck is that? And of course then you can find that, go and look at it and see if it's what you want, or Google for it. Okay. So the way we develop a service is we write a YAML file for it. So a new file, and this is lsw module name .services.yaml. Oh, thank you. I'm not wearing my glasses. Thank you. Okay. And then services, the first thing. This is the name of it. We're going to call it lsw.hello generator. So when we say go and fetch me the thing, I'll call it lsw.hello generator. And here we have the Drupal lsw services hello generator, which is that one. So we're actually said when we ask the container for this, it will give us this class. So let's write that. So, and the nice thing is you can actually look at all the modules and see what all the routes are. You can see what all the services provided are, and get an idea by just looking at the YAML files instead of having to trawl through huge amounts of code. Right. So, technically, if I Drupal cache rebuild all. Did I not spell it right? Drupal.
The German version. Drupal.
I'm not sure how to do this, so let's grep for LSW. So there's the service I just generated. lsw.hello generator goes to there. So I've just asked it what services are available, and it's like, ah, that one's available because it found my lsw.services.yaml file. So I can actually ask the container for it, which we'll do next. Okay. So in our controller, right now we're instantiating it in place. But what we really want to do is ask the Drupal container for that service. Say, give me the service that does this, please. Now, obviously, we've got a very simple service in this case. So, one of the things we have to do is this has to extends default controller, default com. I thought it was default controller, is that not right? Controller base, sorry. Controller base. we're not going to need that anymore because we're not doing it. Okay, so controller base, with taking using object-oriented methods, so there's a base controller base that has some methods in. Now we can override some of those methods if we write them in this object. They use these ones instead of its parents. So we can do that by, there's a quick way of doing it in Phpstorm. Flower n. So you do flower n, override methods, and we want the create methods. Create. And all it's done is wrote some stuff for me quickly. So because we're going to ask the service for it, the controller kind of has to give the information of what's going on here. So what you do here, what you'll see is it's passed this container. You want to know where the heck you get the container from. That's where it gets passed to you here. Is that right? Hello, generator. No static. Hang on. I think, what's going on there? What's going on? So we need a constructor. When create gets called, it's going to call the construct. So let's just fix the hello generator. Is that in here? If we do this, it will add the use thing for me, which is what I'm after. So basically what I'm doing is generator. Oh, I have, yeah, that's why it's grey. Oh, hello, generator. Okay. Oh, there's this one, sorry. So, what we're going to do is, because the create function hands you the container, you can actually container.get, and I've defined that lsw.helloGenerator is in the services lsw.helloGenerator. So
the create function runs before the constructor.
Well, yes, it does, because the new construct gets triggered when you do new constructor. Construct is a magic method. It has those double underscores. You will never manually invoke construct or destruct or any of those.
Yeah, I knew that. I've just never seen the create function. I didn't realize you could do a create function. It would run actually before the constructor runs.
I'm not entirely sure if that's a Drupal thing or a standard PHP thing. It might be a standard PHP thing, or it's actually something to do with the controller base. But anyway, the create function because the create function is what gives us the container, which allows us to pull. Now we have the container, we can reach into the container and pull out our service, and then we can implement new static hello generator. Which what happens is the constructor, and it gets passed into the constructor as hello generator, and then this hello generator equals hello generator is because the private. I guess if you haven't seen, this private one is a let's get the correct terminology for this, is a class variable that only exists inside the class. So when we pass it in, we hold it in here, then anyone else can use it because it's been set on the constructor.
Do you need to put this and then the arrow before your other instances of hello generator?
No, this hello generator, the bottom one in the create function, I'm actually getting out of the container. Then I'm passing it then I'm passing that to the.
Oh, so that's local to that function.
Oh, hang on a minute, there's something missing there. I think I've just deleted a bunch of. I think I accidentally deleted some. New static library, maybe not. Because it generates itself. It's local to that function. That hello generator, it could be called Fred at that point. That gets passed into the constructor, which we then save into the class variable. And then this hello, then when say happens, this hello generator is an instance of that. Is that?
So do you need to put this in front of that? That one right there?
Yes. Because this says it's this object's. It should be. That's what that red line underneath it was.
Yeah, but it's not complaining down here because you've got this on the left side of the.
Yes.
Okay.
But, I mean, to prove that here, I can change this to X.
Yeah.
Yeah. And change this one to X. Just so. What's that complaining at? Oh, it's not. Yeah. When you put your cursor on a variable, Phpstorm underlines all the other variables that are in scope at that moment. So if you take it off, it goes away. Okay. So let's just check that that's right. So we do hello, this hello generator get hello, which when this controller is initially created, the crate gets hammered, the container goes, the crate happens, it has a copy of the container instance, it goes into the container, pulls out the LSW hello service, and then because it does a new static on itself, the constructors happen and it holds it in the class variable. Then when say happens, it gets that class variable and goes, ta-da! Now, that's quite contrived because what we actually do is basically nothing. But the code for something that does huge amounts of things isn't actually much different from that in the controller. Obviously, the hello generator would be different. So if we go here, let's see what happens. So it hasn't actually changed very much, as you can see. But it is now using a service, getting that hello count, gotten hello, by using a service, a Drupal 8 service. And the way you do it is like that. You have the create function that has the container that you look up the service, you store it in a class variable, and then it gets passed to the constructor, which is stuck in a class variable, and then you can use it in the functions as it's going. Now you can pass multiple things in. You can actually pass a logger in here. Now one of the nice things is, if you're using a logger, you can pass the interface in, so you don't actually have to give a concrete class. You can't actually say, it has to be this particular logger. You can say it can be any logger that implements this interface. So you can actually say, I want this, but I want you to log, I've written my own logger that is a special thing over there, and hand it to it, and it will work. And that's one of the beauty, and that's where the dependency injections happen. What you've said is, at runtime, you've told it it's going somewhere else. You've actually written something and say, do something else with this. You've actually injected your logger dependency into it when you called it. Which is what the thing that kind of blows people's dependency injection mind. It's like, it's a bag of services, you reach in, you pull the service out, but you can do those things. You have the ability to mess with them, with the interfaces and things. So, what else are we going to look at here? That's as far as I got with that. That was awesome. Okay. So, if we look at this one, now this is doing this. If we look at this, this is doing a similar kind of thing. It calls the create. It's getting a hello generator, and then there's this logger factory, and the logger factory came from if I grep for logger, the top one is a logger factory. Logger.factory is the name, and it's this logger channel factory. You're like, well, that's pretty Nice. I wonder what happens there. So at the time I'm saying when you create this, when this controller is invoked, use this logger on it while it happens. So then we do the new static hello generator logger factory. So we pass them to the constructor, and you see in the constructor it takes both here. Let me do this so we can read it. And you'll notice this one's logger channel factory interface. Generally, if you come to a point where you can do it, and it will, if it suggests one and one's the same interface, have it take the interface, because that means it can take anything that has that interface as opposed to that single concrete class, and it makes it's more flexible. And again, it just stores them both into the class variables. Now there's a key value. Does this actually work? Did I remove this? So there's a key store built into Drupal as well now. So you can actually ask just for a key store and stuff things into the key store. This is that this key value. How do we find the key value? I've forgotten what it is. So basically, I say create me one with DC char. I can set the DC char store and put this value into it. And then there's this logger. See, I debug out the hello. So I'm doing a couple of different things here. So if I trigger this, so it's this. Hang on, let's find what the root is. This is we say count. So we say, I'll do 50. So gotten hello 50. If we go back and look at this and look at this hello generator, this has the gotten hello 50. What we can do now is if we go back to here, because we logged things, we can actually go to reports, recent log messages, and there we just logged. We used that. We got the system service. We just used the system service to log that out.
That logger that you got, that's one you just downloaded, or did you?
Oh, that's a Drupal core service. I'm actually using a core Drupal service for that. So if we go back and have a look at this is it. We do this logger factory, which we've done. Then get default. There's a couple of different ones. Then debug out hello. So for debug level, when we look at this is debug level. Is that right? Is that what it's called? We can filter on debug, and it should be the gotten hello is a debug value one. So you can put different severities in, and that's saying put the debug version in. So what we did is we looked up, we used the Drupal console to go looking for loggers. There must be some loggers because we know stuff gets logged. That's how all the system stuff gets logged. They ask for the logger and they write to it, just like we have. We've used a system service. We've worked out what the system service is. Now there are hundreds of services, and probably you won't use most of them ever, but there are useful ones in there. So we've told it to log. So that's what this line does. Now there's also this key value pair store here. If we're going to change this, and what I'm going to do is extract stuff out the key value pair store. So I'm not actually going to call, because the .set one on it should have written it into the key value pair with that name DC char store, and written a hello into it. So now I can extract it out. So if we go back to here, let's find, so the 50, there's 50. So if we put anything on the end, it still says 50, because 50 is what's in the store. I'm not actually using the dollar count anymore. I'm actually just pulling it out of the store. And that's a simple value of the way you get that is simply this. use the this key value. It's one of the things that comes with it. You can have it set up to write to Redis. You can have it set up to all sorts of things. So there's a simple key value caching thing going in.
And if you close out and go away, and close out your browser and everything, and come back, that store's gone, or is it?
Yeah, that entirely depends on the store you tell it to use. I'm not sure. I think this one's an in-memory one.
So it's almost like.
But there's several. But here we say.
It's kind of a session.
Yeah.
Storage kind of.
Yes, I believe it is. That I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's memory store by default.
I think it's memory store by default. Also, those are all done. So what else have we got here? There's a couple of really useful things, which is if you do the control space for completing names, you can pick that one. Phpstorm will put the U's in the top automatically for you, so it's the correct one, which saves a lot of typing. The other thing I only just found out was, see this hello generator? If I delete this, and I delete this hello generator, and let's see if I get this right. It's alt click click. No. You can actually tell Phpstorm that that's what's happening, because that's a really common thing. You pass the arguments into the constructor and it saves them. It does the this x equals x and creates it. I thought it was. No. Now I'm trying to remember what the is it this one? That's override methods. I'm trying to think what the keyboard shortcut was now. I can't believe I've forgotten it.
Do you have?
But it will.
Maybe is it because you got rid of the declaration out there, private hello generator?
No, when you do it, it will do the private hello generator and the this hello generator equals hello generator for you. So it will actually write a bunch of the. A lot of these tools will write a bunch of the. I'll put it back in. I'll remember what that is at some point. For some reason, I thought it was this one. That's the override methods. The flower n does the override method. When we've extended, now I can flower n pick override methods, and these are the methods that are in controller base. So it'll actually tell you which. You can see the child, the sequence of objects that each inherits from. Or extend, sorry. So you can see that controller base has these functions in it, and it will show you which ones are private. I guess you can see the lock on it. If one's public static final, the lock will be done, and you can't override that because it's been declared final and things like that. So how did we do that? It's going to drive me mad now. I mean, one of the things you can do, you can hover on it and do flower B, and it will look that class up for you. So now it's found where controller base is, and I can go and look at. It's very useful for zooming around and finding things. So that was a bit of a rapid. Now, in reality, you're never actually going to do it that way. You're going to do Drupal generate module, Drupal generate plugin block, and it will write some code for you. In fact, let's just see what it happens, shall we? So modules. So let's try Drupal generate.
You don't even have to be in that directory.
Yeah, I guess you don't in reality because it knows where they go. Drupal generate module, and it'll ask you some questions. What we're going to call it. Fred
Burger.
Fred Burger. Fred Burger. And now it's a machine name, Fred Burger. Modules custom, see that's where it should be. Module description. Fred Burger. Fed Burger. Package name. Burger. Drupal core version 8. Do you want to generate module file? Yes, please. Define module as a feature. Oh, I didn't know it did that. Say no. Do you want to add a compose.json file? Sure, why not? Module dependencies, no. Confirm generation, yes. Bloop. So now,
Now, what is that, do you wanna make the module to be a feature, or define module as feature?
So features is going back to what it's meant to be. So you can create like a blog feature or a slideshow feature, and then you can pass that around.
that was what feature was originally designed for, but it ended up being the best way to manage your configuration. But of course now all that configuration problem has gone away because of the new CMI. It all comes out as YAML files, so features can go back to what it was originally designed for, which is having a bunch of off-the-shelf things you can put in and turn on, and hey, everything works as a feature, as opposed to a way of managing configuration between dev, test, and live, which is probably 99% of what features is actually used for. So if we take a look, let's take a look at this now.
Yeah, basically if you say yes there, then it'll show up under structure features, and you can enable it, disable it, and all that fun stuff.
So custom Fredberger. So here's my Fredberger.yaml. It wrote that. There's the module file. It's implemented hook help automatically for us and written a bunch of things. There's a composer.json file. I guess that's automatically assumed that it's a Drupal module, look, project.fredberger. So you should be able to, I'm not sure if you can right now for everything or not. The idea is you should be able to manage, instead of like drush download project, you can just composer require project name, composer update. So it can be managed by composer. So you don't actually have to check your modules in. If you want a specific version, you can put it in your composer.json file, and you're done. Yeah. Then people download the tiny little bit you need, composer update, or composer install, and composer update, and boop, everything comes from Packagist. All the Drupal modules, Drupal itself, in fact, they're talking about doing that. Whether that happens or not right now properly, I'm not entirely sure.
I don't think so.
But that's what they're working towards. So it'd be pretty awesome. Eventually you might be downloading Drupal as a composer.json file and just triggering it. And Drupal comes down. Yeah. So, right, is there anything else? It's a lot to take in one go. But you can see it's, if we, let's go back to, let's go back to, let's do the info forever.
Post this video online.
It's already up now. Okay, so
Let's do everything else on air, so it's automatically.
we start off with,
Testing and being recorded to YouTube right now.
yeah, we're doing a Hangouts on air. So some people said they were interested, and some people couldn't make it tonight because of the storms, later on. So we're like, we'll record it, and it'll go on where you go and find the Drupal Chattanooga recordings, it'll be there. So you start with the info file, which is now an info.yaml file, and you can see those look pretty much identical to how they did before. And then we define a root. So we give it a name, which in this case was LSW says, because we can, so we should be able to go Drupal root debug grep LSW, if I spelled Drupal right. And there it is. So now you can always Drupal list. And if you're interested in root things, grep for root. These are the root things. Did I spell something wrong? Drupal, oh my goodness, I did. Drupal list grep root. That should be right. So root debug, root rebuild displays the things, so you can always kind of find it. If you just Drupal list, it gives you everything, and it's a really big list, as you can see. But it allows you to look down and see what kind of things you can do. So it's define that root, and you can do it clear caches, and then Drupal debug root grep for the name, and ping, if it turns up, you've registered it. You've now registered your root. Then obviously you need to work out what the controller is. So in this case, it's the object name, the method in that object. So that's the LSW controller, and obviously the class name and the file name have to match. So if it's called LSW controller, capital LSWC, the file name has to be LSW capital C controller.php. And so it knows where to find the thing. So LSW controller, extends controller base. It will call the say function. Obviously, we've done some other things there. And that returns a response object. Now, of course, what we want to do now is actually do some twig things at this point and do effectively the theming, but I haven't got any of that done yet. Next time, I'll pull a bit of that together. But that is most custom module development is hit a path, do something, send something back. And that is how it's done in Drupal 8. And when you, instead of banging it all into the controller, you can extract the useful work as a service, especially if you think someone else could use it or you could use it in multiple places. Because if that code is in your controller, you can't call it from another place. There might be several paths that use that functionality. Extracting it as a service, each one can actually call the service and use it then. And you can write unit tests for it, and it's decoupled, and it's a lot less fragile. So your code just looks better. You just get used to seeing PHP code like that, rather than the function, the procedural way you're used to writing it. But that's the future. Everything through Composer. And what we're really doing here is exactly what Symfony does. That response object is a Symfony response object. If you can do this, it's the same way you can do it. Symfony does it basically the same way. And so Laravel, which uses Symfony, does it the same way. And a bunch of other things does it the same way. So if you know the Symfony way and the Drupal and the slight changes in the Drupal way, there's more like the Drupal does it in this kind of way, and Symfony likes doing it in this way, and Laravel in this way. But underneath, it's the same thing. And I guess what we should do, at some point we'll get around to, it's getting to 8 o'clock, so we should go for beer.
Yeah, this is where I'll chime in.
You understand that part.
Yeah.
But it's slightly different from the hook menu, hook theme pieces. Like hook menu is entirely gone. It's all done through the routing.yaml files. And it actually makes it a lot easier because all your routes are in one single place. You can look them up in a module. All of your services are a single place. You can look in a module. And you can actually use the Drupal console to spit all of those out and grep for the things you're looking for. So it makes discovery a lot easier, and especially if you've got Phpstorm and a bunch of these things turned on, it makes life a lot easier. And you can't help but love the little console bar at the bottom. That's just awesome.
That is pretty cool.
You can turn it on and watch every single page, what's going on every single page. And this is a
listed all the SQL calls that you made. That's just amazing.
Yes, it is pretty cool, isn't it? Now, there's something called Z-Wave or X-Wave that Zend do, probably Z-Wave. And that does a similar kind of thing, and it will work on Drupal 7 and on more other PHP things. But you have to buy like the Zen server. So it's actually a purchase of software. But if you've got a really big PHP application to try to debug, yeah, that's probably a really useful purchase. It's probably $10,000 or less, and you can use it on everything at that point. So, and that has a similar thing at the bottom. You can open it up, and it tells you how long every single function took to run and what it was doing, and yeah, it's pretty good. Okay. Any questions, Dorothy, or what's the cheap beer tonight?
Where's the WordPress, man?
Where's the WordPress? So that, yeah, Drupal 8. It's actually more straightforward than I thought it was. There's lots of if you've got a Drupalize Me subscription, there's a thing that talks all the way through this. In fact, that's where I cribbed a lot of this from. Because they do it in good steps, so it's easy to understand. And of course, modules unravels? No. Build a module. Buildamodule.com and Drupalize Me. Both are paid sites, but they're both very, very good for this kind of stuff. And it's full of learn Drupal 8 things. And it's about time we learned Drupal 8 because we've been doing Drupal 7 so long. And like, really, 8.1's coming out? Damn, I have to put it in my head better.
Are they giving that idea when?
Okay, and we're done.